Welcome, and thank you for being with us here today. I'm Krista Lopez, and I'm a Senior Advisor for CTEH, and I'm a member of the IAEM Conference Committee. I'd like to welcome you to the Behind the Wind during our early edition speaker series session for the IAEM 73rd Annual Conference. A couple housekeeping items for you to make note of before I turn it over to our presenter. Questions will be reserved till the end of the presentation. And in your chat panel is a Q&A button near the top of the panel. When you click on that button, a text box will appear near the bottom of the screen where you can enter your question. All sessions will be available on demand, so be sure to look for access instructions from IAEM headquarters. Note that you must remain logged in to a specific session for at least 45 minutes in order to receive attendance credit. Thank you for being with us here today. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Please welcome Lanita Lloyd. She's the chair of our IAEM Awards and Recognition Committee. Thank you for being with us today. And Lanita, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Krista. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Behind the Wind. I'm truly honored to be your host as we gather for a powerful and timely conversation with some of the most distinguished voices in emergency management. Our panelists today are not just experts. They are the 2025 award-winning leaders recognized by the International Association of Emergency Managers for their outstanding contributions. Their work has shaped policies, saved lives, and strengthened communities. Whether you're tuning in as a seasoned professional, a student of the field, or someone passionate about public safety, you're in for an insightful and inspiring session. We'll explore real-world challenges, innovative solutions, and the evolving landscape of emergency management in an era of complex risks. So settle in and get ready to learn from the best. We'll begin with the 5 of our panelist award winners. So I'm going to introduce them. If you can go ahead and bring them to the stage. So I'm going to introduce you one at a time. The Emergency Manager of the Year, Drew Chandler, Director of Dare County Emergency Management in Kentucky. Career Excellence Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Jeffrey Gillets, Coordinator of the Emergency Disaster Services of the Salvation Army Southern Territory, which covers 15 states plus D.C. The Clayton R. Christopher Award winner, also known as the Local Emergency Manager Lifetime Achievement Award, Ashley Ty, Director of the Lowndes County Emergency Management Agency in Georgia. Voluntary Emergency Management Organization, DC VOAD, represented today by Kobe Gibson of the American Red Cross. Technology and Innovation Award, Disaster Response Coordination System, DRCS, and Joshua Barnes, which is represented today by Katie Piccioni of NASA. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to congratulate our panelists on your well-deserved recognition. Being selected for an IAEM award is no small feat. It reflects not only excellence in emergency management, but also a deep commitment to service, innovation, and resilience. It's also important to note that the field of nominees this year was truly exceptional. The competition was fierce, with many outstanding professionals and programs in the running. That makes today's honorees, you, all the more remarkable. You stand out among such top-tier peers. The fact that you stand out among such top-tier peers is a testament to the impact and leadership you bring to our field. So we're going to begin with a few questions, and I'm going to start with you, Drew, with your Emergency Manager of the Year. What inspired you to pursue a career in emergency management, and what keeps you motivated today?
Thanks, Lanita, for the question. I've got one correction. I'm Woodford County, Kentucky, not Dare County, but that's not the first time I've been confused with Drew Pearson, and I'm sure it won't be the last.
Well, started out great already. Sorry about that, Drew.
All good. I'd like to start off by also congratulating all of IAM's 2025 award recipients and thanking the Awards and Recognition Committee members and our headquarters staff for their efforts to run our association's awards program. I'm humbled to be a recipient and honored to share time with the other panelists today. Becoming an emergency manager happened almost by accident. When I was 6, my parents and I were hit by a drunk driver, and that event created a desire from a young age to help people. It led to joining safety patrol in elementary school, a fire cadet program, and later enrollment in an emergency medical technician course. It wasn't until the events of September 11th that I recall noticing FEMA, mostly because I knew the function as belonging to locally other organizations with names like Office of Emergency Services and Disaster and Emergency Services. My vocational education was actually for networking and systems administration, and private sector information technology work is what caused me to relocate to Kentucky. The volunteer departments weren't keen at that time on taking a chance with a transplant who learned how to fight fire in another state. And I found that quite discouraging, and more than once traveled back to my old department to pick up an ambulance shift and maintain affiliation. One day, an officer of the Lexington Fire Department came into my place of business to pick up some items for station renovations. We hit it off quickly, as firefighters often do, and I learned he was the county's part-time emergency manager. He, of course, invited me to help with a preparedness project to develop a refrigerator flip chart. And that volunteer work continued, eventually turning into a part-time deputy position. And my first disaster working in the EM field was in 2003 for DR 1454 for severe winter storms. That EM experience opened a door to the state's Public Health Emergency Preparedness Branch and later the Board of Emergency Medical Services, where my desire to help people collided with technology and communications. The 2020 pandemic really illustrated the need for a more robust EM program. And in 2021, our community leaders made that investment that allowed me to come on full time and make other program enhancements. What keeps me motivated today is the variety of work we do as emergency managers ensures there's no shortage of activities to keep things interesting. If I'm ever feeling stuck, uninspired, or overwhelmed, I just pivot myself to another project or task to change it up. Serving the community that I live in is also a factor because the impact of our work affects our neighbors and friends, and the obligation to them is understandably strong. It should come as no surprise I would draw some inspiration from comedian Groucho Marx, who is attributed as saying, "If you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong." And not every day as an emergency manager is fun, but we should be able to regularly gain satisfaction from our work.
Thank you, Drew. I agree with you on the satisfaction, and I think all of our folks would. Ashley, wanted to ask you the next question. You have been recognized as the Christopher Award winner. This is the oldest award provided by our organization. Many may not know the story behind the award, so I'm going to share just a little. Clayton R. Christopher served as director of Clayton County, Georgia Civil Defense from June 1962 until his death in 1976. He died in an airplane crash on his way to Thomasville, Georgia. He was going there to get final approval on plans for an addition to the county Civil Defense Center from authorities in the Civil Defense Region headquarters. He was Clayton County's first civil defense director and was instrumental in making emergency management in Clayton County what it is today. At that time, he recognized and modernized the system. He also served as president of the U.S. Civil Defense Council Region 3, which is now IAEM-USA Region 4. IAEM-USA presents this award annually in honor of Clayton R. Christopher for his unselfish dedication, his principles of integrity and leadership, and he has served as a guiding force to the institution of emergency management and formed a strong foundation for its future. Ashley, congratulations on your recognition for this lifetime achievement. I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Drew. What inspired you to pursue a career in emergency management, and what keeps you motivated today?
Thank you, Lanita, and especially hearing the story behind the award. I truly am honored to have been selected. More humbled that my peers and my partners thought enough of me to nominate me, and congratulations to all the other award winners for much of the same reason. Just by virtue of being nominated means that you're making a difference in your community. But to get to the question, I started my career in fire service, and my reason for joining the fire department was I love the ability to make a difference in people's lives on what was usually the worst day they'd ever had. Each call that I went on mattered, but I started realizing that as much of an impact as I was having there, I recognized that there was the opportunity to have an even greater impact. And so when the opportunity presented itself to become the emergency management director for Lowndes County, what drew me into seeking that position and ultimately being selected was that same sense of purpose. But instead of applying and get on an individual basis, I could apply that and make a difference community wide. While what we do as emergency managers is less frequent than, say, house fires or medical calls, the impact is far greater because I'm able to shape how the whole community prepares, responds, and recovers. And unfortunately, I've had the opportunity to do that several times in recent years. What really inspired me was realizing that while there's a lot to be said for being able to strengthen one family, my job and my role as emergency management director has allowed me to shape and strengthen our entire community and have a more lasting impact that lasts for years and years. Really, what keeps me motivated, the first thing is going back to what I said. Just when I kind of feel like maybe I'm spinning my wheels and not having an impact, our partners sharing what it means, how we're impacting what they do and how we're actually making a true difference in the community. That's what keeps me going, and being able recently to see that play out in real time when you see neighbors helping neighbors, volunteers stepping in without you even asking. And then the plans and the partnerships and all those meetings that we trudge through that we think are a waste of time. You see those actually make a difference when the community needs them the most. Those are the moments that really remind me of why the work that we do as emergency managers truly matters.
Thank you, Ashley. And I know that coming from Georgia myself, I know that your area was impacted with several disasters in the last couple of years, which and we're thankful that you're there. Going to go on to Jeff Gillets. You have been honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award, Career Excellence. Tell us a little bit about how you began your career in emergency management, and then look back, Jeff, and share with us what you consider your proudest moment in this field.
Thank you, Lanita. It is an honor to be here alongside all the other award winners. I started my career, I think, like a lot of other kids out of college. I took the first job I was offered, and that was as a FEMA local hire for a coastal disaster that hit my home state of New Jersey. And they trusted me enough at that point to appoint me to the outreach team, and I was allowed to hand out flyers. But I got really lucky because that got my foot in the door. When I left that operation, I was a public information officer. And from there, I spent more than 30 years in emergency management. And I think for me, during my time in this profession, we've seen emergency management grow to find its identity as a profession, to diversify. And I think that's really what I'm most proud of, that this profession has been able to meet the challenges that very, very few people predicted. I remember Drew mentioned 9/11, and I remember thinking when 9/11 happened, that was the worst disaster we could ever imagine. And then after that, we had 4 hurricanes hit Florida, and then came Hurricane Katrina, and then came the pandemic. And it's just, we've had our struggles in this profession, but emergency management continues to rise to meet the occasion of these escalating catastrophes. And I think that's pretty remarkable. That we have the determination, the resilience, the ability to persevere despite the odds. And it makes me truly proud to be a part of this group. So I know it's not really personally, but as a whole, I'm most proud of the ability of the emergency management community to rise to the occasion and serve an ever more disaster-prone world.
And I appreciate you saying that, Jeff. I think we would all agree with you that pivoting and being able to work all hazards is extremely important, taking our skills and applying them in that way. Thank you for that. Kobe, you represent a collaboration of organizations that support disasters in the DC area. Can you tell us about the DC VOAD, the winner of the Voluntary Emergency Management Organization of the Year, and share one of the greatest achievements that you think the DC VOAD has accomplished?
Yeah, thank you, Lanita. First off, I want to say that as a coalition of organizations, I'm representing a lot of other people. Benjamin Curran is the current director of the DC VOAD, and really he's been in charge for the past year now, and all of this credit is really to him and the board members. The DC VOAD started in 1970 after Hurricane Agnes to help coordinate some of that, to reduce the chaos and confusion after the disaster and be part of that coordination and collaboration. The VOAD movement has something called the 4 C's: cooperation, communication, coordination, and collaboration. And that's the driving force behind the DC VOAD as well. Ben really took this VOAD from being a little bit more of a sleepy organization where we were less connected with the government and did not have a large number of members, whether they were local in DC or nationally represented. And he really pushed and he knocked on doors, and he created this community and this fabric of different organizations coming together to now be 26 organizations with 2 different fellows, one from Ukraine and one from Morocco, and just really showing the extensiveness. And Ben came up with the DC VOAD vision of build a disaster resilient city in Washington, D.C. The nation's capital deserves no less. And his push to connect with the D.C. government and be part of exercises and preparedness trainings, preparing for the large number of people who come into the district for July 4th, being there for different national special security events. It's really, it's a testament to his ability to go knock on doors and really connect with different people. Another highlight of this past year is there have been a series of high-level disaster talks with the Australian Embassy. So again, just showing that ability to be international, even though we are just one city VOAD. So what Ben wanted to really highlight was the ability to be there in the community consistently day in and day out. And so being there at the farmers markets, being there at the different local fairs, being there with the city government. And that's something that for this year has been really what has been the biggest achievement for the DC VOAD, just having that large number of organizations that have joined and being able to be there in the community from wherever they are needed and whatever is asked for.
I have to share with you, Kobe, that when it was shared with many others that DC VOAD was being recognized this year, so many people across the United States are familiar with the work that you're doing there. And we're really grateful, and you deserve to be the award winner for this year. So thanks for all that you're doing. And next, we're going to go to Katie. We're so glad that you have joined us today. We're all anxious to hear about the Disaster Response Coordinating System, or DRCS. Please tell us a little bit about you and about the program.
Thank you so much, Lanita. like the others have said, it's a real honor for our group to be recognized. And I'll just start by saying that the Disasters Response Coordination System consists of about 25 NASA employees spread across the country. And so, like Kobe, I'm here representing a team who's really, they're the ones who get the credit for the work that we're doing. But the Disasters Response Coordination System provides public satellite imagery to emergency managers to support response operations. So we take satellite imagery from space, and using that data, we can detect flood extents, landslides, we can delineate burn scars and burned areas, and we can even get a sense of where power outages might be persisting or occurring in rural areas using nighttime lights imagery. And so these are examples of the kinds of data that we can provide on request. And sometimes we also take these data sets, we combine them with other geospatial data to look at where buildings or roads or other infrastructure might have been impacted based on what we can observe from space. And so we're activated on request. We're usually able to provide data within 2 to 3 days, depending on cloud cover and when satellite overpasses occur. And so we field requests from federal, state, local, tribal, territorial agencies, and also from voluntary agencies. And because our program is not tied to Stafford declarations, we can support a wide number of disasters. And so all it takes is an email to us at drcs@nasa.gov, and we can field that. And then all of our data is published publicly on our portal, so it's available to all response partners when a disaster is happening. And then in my role, I'm the response coordination lead for the program. So my job is to work with our team and figure out which data sets are the best ones that can answer questions that our emergency management partners are trying to answer. And then we work together to publish that data. And so my background is a little bit different. I have a background in engineering and technology policy, but like Jeffrey, I was really lucky right out of grad school to have an offer for a job at FEMA. And so I worked in public assistance for a few years, and then I was in FEMA's geospatial office, and then worked several years in the public sector research space, and have sort of had a windy path towards my role at NASA, but really always kind of pushing forward on, okay, well, how can we be using technology to support the work that emergency managers are doing, not to replace what we're doing, but to strengthen the systems that we have using the new advancements in technologies if possible. So yeah, it's a real honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, and we're glad to have you here for sure. You bring together a technology I think that many are going to be interested in, probably all of their award winners as well. So I think you'll find that you'll have lots of new friends very soon. So thank you for being here. I'm delighted to also introduce someone whose thoughtful nomination helped spotlight one of our award-winning panelists. So Tyra Gore is a respected voice in the emergency management community and the nominator behind one of this year's IAEM award recipients. Her deep understanding of the field and her ability to recognize leadership and innovation played a key role in bringing one of today's honorees to the forefront. She offers a unique lens not only as a practitioner, but as someone who has closely followed and championed the work of those making a real difference. Welcome, Tyra. We know it takes time and effort to complete the nomination and process and gather the documents needed to nominate a candidate for an award. So thank you first for your efforts. We appreciate you and as well as all the others who participated in the nomination process this year. You nominated Jeff Jellitz for the Career Excellence Lifetime Achievement Award. So in your view, what does career excellence mean in emergency management, and how does Jeff embody that?
Thank you, Lanita. My pleasure to recognize outstanding leaders in emergency management. But when I think about career excellence in emergency management, I don't just think about technical skills or years of experience. To me, career excellence is about consistently demonstrating leadership, professionalism, and a lasting impact of the course of a career devoted to preparedness, response, and recovery, as well as resilience. It's not just about what someone does day to day, it's about the long-term contributions that move the field forward, strengthen organizations, and most importantly, make a difference for communities in crisis. And that's exactly what Jeff Jellett represents. With more than 30 years of service, starting with FEMA and the Georgia Emergency Management Agency and continuing with the Salvation Army, Jeff has been at the forefront of some of the nation's most significant disaster responses. No matter the situation, he leads with his expertise, calm, and he's confident. Those who've worked alongside of him will tell you he's a steady hand in the storm, someone you can count on to bring clarity and direction when it matters most. But Jeff's influence goes well beyond disaster response. Jeff is also a mentor and a trainer at heart. He pours his energy into the training staff, volunteers, and emerging leaders, making sure they are prepared to meet the challenges ahead. Because of that investment, his knowledge doesn't stop with him. It ripples out through everyone he has trained, strengthening the entire emergency management network. Jeff has also been developing practical, scalable solutions in logistics, warehousing, and resource distribution that have become models for other organizations. His work has made the Salvation Army faster, more efficient, and better able to meet people's needs when they need it most. And his reach extends far beyond the Salvation Army. Across the Southeast, Jeff has built a strong partnership with state and local emergency management agencies, improving coordination and collaboration. Nationally, he has been a leading advocate for integrating faith-based and nonprofit groups into FEMA and VOAD structures. And globally, he's shared the lessons learned here in the US with Salvation Army leaders and humanitarian partners, influencing approaches to disaster relief around the world. In every setting, Jeff reminds us that effective emergency management isn't just about plans and logistics. It is about people, relationships, communication, and trust. Through his dedication and compassion, Jeff has elevated the role of nonprofits in disaster relief, fostered collaborations across sectors, and set a standard of excellence that continues to inspire others in the field of emergency management.
Thank you, Tyra. I appreciate you sharing so much. And I know Jeff had kind of had his head down. It's hard to hear sometimes what your peers think of you. And I have to say that the nominations for all of you that are our panelists as well as the others, they were great nominations this year, and many that have achieved so much. So it's good to hear what type of person we're looking for, what that leader is, and what characteristics that they share. So thank you for Tyra. Thank you for that, Tyra. I also wanted to ask you one other question. If you could describe Jeff's career, I know y'all have worked together many, many years, in 3 words, what would they be and why?
First would be dedicated. Jeff has spent decades strengthening disaster preparedness and response. His dedication shows in the long hours, the tough deployments, and the steady commitment he's given to the Salvation Army. Whether it's preparing for hurricanes, tornadoes, or even public health emergencies, Jeff is always there, planning ahead, coordinating teams, and making sure people and resources are ready when they're needed most. Second, I would say collaborative. Jeff is a bridge builder. He knows that effective disaster response takes all of us, government agencies, nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and corporate partners working together. He's built those connections and nurtured those partnerships so that when disaster strikes, help moves quickly and communities get the best possible support. And my third word would be compassionate. At the heart of Jeff's work is the care for people, survivors, volunteers, and colleagues. He often reminds us that disaster relief isn't just about logistics or supplies. It's about restoring dignity, hope, and humanity. That compassion defines how he leads and now he serves and how he serves. Jeff truly embodies what career excellence looked like in emergency management through his leadership, mentorship, innovation, and heart. He has strengthened organizations, empowered people, and made a lasting impact on the field. He inspires everyone around him to rise to the occasion. And because of his work, both disaster professionals and communities we serve will be stronger for years to come.
Thank you, Tara, and that is a testament to your work, Jeff. So I do want to thank you, Tara, because you have helped to open a door. I hope that others are looking at the work that they do with their peers and with their partners, and that you begin sharing some of that dialogue with them so that they can hear the difference that they've made. And I also hope that participants on our webinar are already thinking about those who have influenced them, and that you're considering nominating others in the future. So I have a few more questions for all of you, and we're going to go through the same order. Drew, we'll start with you again. What major incident or program best illustrates your leadership in emergency management this year?
2025 has been a series of incidents, the effects of which we will feel in our community for years. We started by recalling staff early from holiday vacations for back-to-back winter weather events that in a different time at FEMA might have resulted in a declaration. Then in February, we had a flood of the Kentucky River, which is our entire western border, that fell a fraction of a foot short of major flood stage, leading to our first major declaration, DR 4860. And in April, the river flooded a second time, 8 feet higher than before and a quarter foot shy of the all-time recorded record, and that became DR 4864. Despite all that response activity, our team has been able to maintain the daily business of the EMA office. We did that by prioritizing what was important for the community and the recovery process rather than allowing the noisiest problems to control our productivity. Doing that wasn't always popular, and we did find it extremely difficult to send regrets where we would normally accept invitations to participate in things such as exercise evaluations for our neighbors. Also, we committed time to continue our professional development and growth. One of our deputies earned his state certification, and the county's administrator, my boss, dragged me nearly kicking and screaming out from behind where I'd rather be behind the curtain to provide regular video updates to our community about the flood and other topics. I have a sense that public-facing content and social reach might have been a factor when IAEM approached us about helping the Government Affairs Committee's legislative education efforts earlier in the year, as well as the National Emergency Management Awareness Month videos. Woodford County in Kentucky being a part of those initiatives was special for us, and I think that involvement illustrates what we're doing is working. Our colleagues have taken notice and they're asking questions about our program.
That's wonderful, Drew. Thank you for sharing. Ashley, I've got a different question for you this time. What lessons have you learned about community engagement that others can benefit from?
That's a good question. As I listen to some of my fellow panelists answering their first questions, and several of them mentioned they were there representing a team or a group of individuals. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is the philosophy has to be we all represent a team. Emergency management is not an individual sport; it's a team sport. And that engagement with those partners has to start before the disaster. So many times, thankfully, people will be complimentary, and their feeling is that when we've had these disasters, things have gone well. We've been as prepared as as any community could be. And I always say that doesn't just happen. That's a product of all the meetings that we have, the exercises, all those boring parts of the job, the blue sky work that we do. But if the only time that we build relationships is when things are happening, then we're always going to be behind. The trust that it takes for people to want to partner with you, we build that when things are quiet, showing up at community meetings, visiting schools, having one-on-one conversations with people, and just being accessible. Another big lesson that I learned early on is the importance of engaging the whole community. I'm really the first full-time EMA Lowndes County's had. Prior to that, it was always, tagged on to another department somewhere. So it didn't, they weren't able to give it the same focus that I've been fortunate to be able to do. And so there were a lot of groups that maybe didn't feel like they were engaged or involved in the planning and preparedness of our community. So the engagement has to go beyond just the first responders, but including schools, your nonprofit groups, volunteer groups, churches, businesses, a lot of the people that have a tendency to get overlooked. And when those people feel heard and valued in the planning process during the blue sky days, then they really become true partners. And we've seen that as over the years, our emergency management program has grown, not necessarily because of anything I've done, but because of the engagement and the partners that wanted to come to the table. And so when we have a crisis situation, that trust and collaboration is really what makes the difference in a successful response and in a struggling.
Thank you, Ashley. We're going to go on to Jeff. And Jeff, your question is, what advice would you give to someone just starting in this field?
I'm actually tempted to just say hire Tyra Gore as your job coach, because she can make you sound really, really good despite your actual mediocre skills. But I'd say three things. Number one, network. Emergency management is a profession about relationships. And don't just develop connections with professional mentors, although those are important, but you're going to need help in a disaster. So start filling up your phone with people who can give you technical expertise or supplies, or just be a shoulder to cry on when you've had a really bad day in emergency management. You want to build that network. Secondly, look at those skills that have broad application, because there's a lot of different places you end up going in the emergency management career. For me, when I started, I was computer savvy for the time, not so much now because it's 30 years later, but being able to be technologically savvy was super helpful. Being able to write and write well was really important to me. And probably the most important skill was the ability to communicate. A lot of emergency management is training, getting in front of people, warning them about risk, and communicating with elected officials and leadership that this is what's going on. If you can speak and speak well, I think that will serve you very well going forward. And then look at the emergent technologies for the next generation. If you're not savvy with social media, AI, GPS tracking, as Katie was talking about, those are skills that you need. And no matter where you end up in emergency management, some of those skills are going to have broad application and really help your career. And lastly, and it seems pretty simple, but it's to me the most important, take every opportunity you can get to go on an actual disaster. There's no better place to learn. And whether that's as a FEMA reservist, or being EMAC'd into a situation, or raise your hand and join the Salvation Army or the American Red Cross as a volunteer. Every chance you can get on site really gives you valuable expertise. And, let's be honest, it's nice to see what's going on someplace else and get to practice before you have to go home and it's all on you, and the decisions that you make are 100% what's going to happen next. So I would encourage everybody to deploy if they can.
Good advice, Jeff. Thank you so much for that input. We're going to go on to you, Kobe. How does your organization build trust? And we are referring to DC VOAD. How do you build trust with communities before, during, and after disasters?
Well, first off, I just want to say that Jeffrey just gave a shout out to the Salvation Army, and he was quick with the American Red Cross follow up there, but I was ready to raise my hand and say, hey, we got volunteer opportunities. So thanks for that shout out there. But to your point about the DC VOAD, how do we build trust? It goes a lot back to what Ashley was talking about with that community engagement and community mobilization. It's a question of being there, being in the community, attending the job fairs, attending the farmers markets, what have you, and making sure that you're in there with the faith-based organizations and talking to the people who are in the community, and making sure that it's not a question of outside presences coming in and telling people how they should prepare. Instead, it's finding the connection, finding that person who really is the speaker for the community. With DC VOAD having 26 organizations, DC is really not too massive of a city. And so having 26 organizations, there are national representatives, there are local representatives. And so being able to say, hey, we've got a partner who lives over in the southeast quadrant of DC, and we can go talk with them and they can go say, yeah, we have our constituents who are attending this church service or this preparedness fair or what have you. So it's really making sure that you have the people who are experts in the community and being able to rely on them to build that sense of trust with the constituents rather. So understanding that it's, as Ashley was talking about, it's showing up before a disaster and not just exchanging the business cards afterwards, which is a hallmark of emergency management. So understanding that when people say, hey, we need help, or hey, we want to talk with something, and it's before a disaster, oh, we're going to have this preparedness fair, showing up and then following up with the people who have that simple question. The DC VOAD just hosted on September 29th, one of the last days of Preparedness Month. There's a big preparedness fair and bringing together 40 some different organizations, people that are in the VOAD and external to the VOAD, and just providing essentially a town hall opportunity for certain government leaders. The director of the Emergency Management Agency was speaking there, and then other key community leaders to talk through preparedness. So it's being there and allowing the community members to understand, oh, this is what a disaster could look like, and this is what preparedness looks like. And there are team members, there are organizations that are out there looking to support the people before, during, and after a disaster. Another example is DC has had a few recent multifamily fires that took down a couple large-scale apartment buildings. So what the DC VOAD did is attending those government organized briefings afterwards and seeing what unmet needs there are and understanding how they can support the community and seeing if there are who's falling through the gaps of the other large-scale organizations that are responding there. And it just being there, and then when someone asks a question, making sure that you send them that follow-up email or giving them that follow-up phone call and saying, hey, we're here and we're listening, and we want you to continue to engage with us.
Thank you, Kobe. Excellent. Katie, I have another question for you. What does this award mean to you personally and professionally?
Well, for me and for my whole team, it is a real honor for us to be recognized by IAEM, for a couple of reasons. One is that, the NASA Disasters Program, which is our parent program, has existed for the better part of a decade. The focus has mostly been on science, on the scientific practice of how we use satellite imagery to study disasters, but it's been largely very academic. The Disasters Response Coordination System just launched last June, in June 2024. And since then we've supported, and the purpose of the DRCS is really to bridge this gap between research and practice, right? To take that science and try to make it useful. And so over the last year, we've supported over 20 incidents globally. And we've done a lot of work to build relationships with emergency managers at federal, state, and local levels. And so it's a real honor for us to be recognized as actually, I see this as a metric of success for our program in many ways, right? It means that we're actually doing that. We're taking the research and translating it into practice in a way that is meaningful to to our stakeholders and to the emergency management community of practice. It's one thing for us to receive a NASA award or an award from a science journal or something like that, and it's much more meaningful to be recognized by the practitioners we're seeking to support. And so we're all really humbled to receive this. And personally, this kind of thing inspires and motivates me to continue working on applying advanced technology in emergency management. I mean, a lot of times when you take something new and try to apply it in a field, quite frankly, that it wasn't designed for, satellites weren't designed to support emergency managers. I wish they were. But sometimes when we take these tools and try to apply them in new ways, it can be really frustrating. Things don't work, or we have to adapt the technology, or we have to learn how to use tools in new ways, translate across different lexicons where we use the same words in different ways. And so anyway, so this kind of recognition for me is really motivating to keep working on this and to keep doing it, even when it's hard and even when it's frustrating, even when it doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't work, and we kind of pick up and keep trying again. So, we're really grateful, and this kind of award really affirms the efforts that our whole team is making. So thank you.
And thank you for sharing that, Katie. Diligence is always important in this field, so appreciate you bringing that up. So our final question to all of you is a very quick question. So I'll give you a moment to think about this, but in one sentence, how would you define success in emergency management? And this time we're going to go opposite as we have in the past. So Katie, we're going to begin with you this time.
I would say success is when no news is good news. The public or media don't realize that something happened, or in our case, when technology is seamlessly integrated into operations, and there's no fuss about it.
Thank you. And Kobe?
Yeah, I think success in emergency management is an informed community that knows that there's a plan for when a disaster happens. And it's really that preparedness and that information ahead of time.
Thank you. Jeff?
Survival. I think as emergency managers, we have one of the best jobs in the world because, as you said, we get to help people on their worst days, but it can take a toll on you as an individual. So take care of yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally, because at the end of the day, you also want to be a disaster survivor, not a victim.
Absolutely. Ashley?
Well, for me, success in emergency management is measured by the difference we're able to make in people's lives, helping them stay safe, recover faster, come out stronger on the other side. Because really, at the end of the day, we may deal with a lot of plans and grants and policies, and a lot of that's uncertain now. But what drives me is knowing that behind every decision we make, there's a person, a family member, a neighbor, and if what we're doing makes even one of their lives better, then we've done something that truly matters.
Thank you, Ashley. And Drew?
Success in emergency management is having boundless collaboration. We need to overcome any obstacles that take away from stakeholder engagement and problem solving.
Thank you all for your answers. We appreciate your insight and the impact that you have made on emergency management. We're going to keep all of you in the front and center for a little longer as I ask our conference committee liaison, Krista Lopez, to step up and facilitate any questions that others might have for you. Krista?
Thank you so much, Lanita, and to all the award nominations and nominees, as well as the nominators. What a great session. We are going to begin answering some Q&A. Please don't forget to fill out your survey. I need to put that shameless plug in for this session. For those of you who are attending this today, there will be a QR code and a link. So please be sure to fill out the feedback. But first, want to kind of expand on Katie's comments related to technology and how much emphasis do you place on technology integration for learning? And do you see multi-layer communication, audible plus digital, as a critical next step for improving reach to everyone?
Those are great questions. I will say learning is a little bit outside of what my group focuses on. But I would say that, in terms of from the access perspective, how do you make this kind of information available? We I guess translating this to a GIS and remote sensing context, we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we take satellite imagery, which when it comes off a satellite is ones and zeros, right? And process that in such a way that we're able to communicate with a broad number of different audiences. So we think about things like, will a colorblind person be able to read this map? And how do we most of the time we are delivering imagery and we let GIS specialists do the analysis, but sometimes we provide direct analysis. And so thinking about a picture's worth 1,000 words, they say, but only a few of those words are maybe important or providing information. And so how do we take an image and analyze it in such a way that we're pulling out important pieces of information so that we're not overwhelming? So I think that's a little bit different than this question is getting at. But I can't comment so much on like the public messaging side of alerting, but those are some of the things we think about.
Thank you for that. And Drew, I'm going to let you kind of follow up to that on the public side of alerting. You have had a multitude of events over the last year, and communicating to our public is just so important. And we know that communication, when we do our after action reports, is always the first thing that everyone says went wrong. So what are some steps we can do across the profession to improve that reach? What are some steps maybe that you've even implemented to get that reach across to the varying public and citizens?
Well, the first challenge is the authenticity of the message, and we can provide some confidence in our alerting capabilities by following a lot of great best practices. Having pre-scripted alert templates to go from instead of just trying to fire one off from the mobile device from on scene is always a better way to go. But for us, giving our community alerting system its own identity, free of the police, fire, EMS, and the other social channels, gave folks a one-stop shop that if they heard about something going on, they know that they can go there. They know it's our community notification system. And we've largely gotten the buy-in. There's a recognizable brand behind it. And we work really hard to maintain our messaging strategies and not oversaturate. Using the boy who cried wolf analogy, if you over message, they'll start to ignore the ones when it really matters most.
I appreciate that. And I'm going to ask a question from the chat here, and I'll have Ashley lead and then others can join in. So Ashley, what are your thoughts on how one could secure support for emergency management priorities within a parent organization like local law enforcement or however, that has competing priorities? How do we get the emergency management voice across?
That's a very good question. And I think it goes back to something that was mentioned when Jeff was speaking, and diligence. We just have to keep pecking away and not give up. And really, the biggest way to secure support is to help them understand what emergency management is and what you have to offer. You have to make yourself useful. I'll admit, when I became an emergency management director, I didn't know what emergency management was. And so I can't be hypocritical and fault the sheriff, but the sheriff's office here is a great example. I was EMA director for close to 4 years and didn't have a bad relationship, just didn't have very much of a relationship and a lot of support from the sheriff's office until one day something happened and they needed some resources. And I said, "Hey, Sheriff, would you like me to help you with that?" And then from that point, then it opened the floodgates. And I was like, "Oh, whoa! I can only do like so many things at a time." But that was what it took to kick that relationship off, and it was not giving up. And again, I had to show them how I'm not coming in to take over, but here's how I can support you in what you're trying to do. And I think when they realize that and realize the value that you can bring, then yeah, and a lot of everything goes back to relationships. Understanding how sheriffs in particular are different people. So you have to treat them differently than you would say your partners with the Red Cross or Salvation Army. The relationship is just a little different. So, understanding how to manage those relationships, and I think that's really how you secure that support.
I appreciate that. And we've got time for one more question. Ashley, I do want to comment, though, that I always say that in emergency management, we are all fixers and we're all the networkers. So we can fix the network of people. And to Katie's earlier comment about that strange navigation we all made to our current roles and profession, I too started my space as a volunteer firefighter, EMT, search and rescue, and then later in disasters. So to Kobe and to Jeff, how can people get involved in voluntary organizations, and how do they also, I get this question a lot, how they also, when they're involved, show the experience that they have being professional, right? Because I used to always put on my resume professional volunteer experience, because I felt like folks didn't rank us high enough, even though we were putting in, the same amount of hours and doing the same amount of work. How do you professionalize and get that message across? Jeff or Kobe? I know you guys have to fight over it now.
Kobe, go ahead.
That's something that the DC VOAD, and for me and my role in the American Red Cross right now, is facing with being in DC and there being a lot of turnover, a lot of changes in employment of federal employees and other individuals right now in the district. And so that's a question a lot of people are asking of, hey, are there job openings? What are things that I can do? How can I boost my resume? So it's a really timely question. Something that I found, I started out as a volunteer for the Red Cross, and then this role opened up and I applied for it. There's a lot of leadership opportunities in the Red Cross and in the VOAD. As I mentioned earlier on, we have two different fellows from internationally, one from Morocco, one from Ukraine. And being in the VOAD, being with the Red Cross, these volunteer organizations have a lot of professionalism and have a lot of needs that are directly applicable to the paid side of the emergency management world. And I think that's one of the key distinction, is just some people go out there and get paid, and some people go out there and don't get paid because they have the free time or because they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. So I think it's a give and take of making sure that the paid professionals in the field, understand that the volunteers are doing it both because they want to, they love it, and then also they have the experience. And so kind of asking both sides of the aisle to be, or both groups to say, hey, yeah, being a volunteer you can be a professional volunteer, and stepping up to be the leader as a volunteer and saying, hey, there's a gap over there and I want to go fill that gap. So for the VOAD, stepping up and saying, I want to be the director, I want to be the secretary, I want to take a larger role. And so you can, when you're putting it on your resume, you can, rather than just saying, I volunteered, you can say, no, I was the director, I was whatever it is, and have that title there so that people can see, oh, you were that title, rather than just, I was a volunteer. And so explaining that difference both on your resume and then being able to speak to that in job applications and job interviews, I think is a key distinction. But it only works if the people who are hiring understand that distinction as well. So it comes from both groups of people, I would say.
Thank you for that. And Jeff, any final thoughts on that? We've just got a minute left here.
Yeah, I would just add, as you look for your volunteer experience, make sure you pick the agency that matches what you want to do. If you want to do debris removal, don't volunteer with the Salvation Army. They don't trust us with chainsaws. That's a Team Rubicon, Southern Baptist type relationship. So find the place that's your perfect fit. And credit to IAEM. They're one of the first organizations that I remember when I was applying for my certification as a CEM that says if you have professional volunteer hours, you can count those towards your years of experience if you document them appropriately. And so I think any legitimate disaster relief voluntary agency does provide that avenue for you to document your time and to advance from not just a food service worker, but maybe to a food service supervisor. And then get your certification, because, once you've done that, even if it's all volunteer, you've now earned the same certification as somebody who may have gotten some professional hours as well. So there's a great avenue for that as well.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you all. We have another session, early edition, coming up next Tuesday at noon. We're going to be hearing about the impact of an individual action in emergency management and disaster relief. So again, cheers to y'all and congratulations. Have a great day.
Thank you.